you get used to just living off of stored body fat. You also could overdo it. Like I have patients who shrink it all the way down to just one meal a day, and it's actually not so great. They're losing muscle because they're burning protein during the day. I want people to choose the right foods, be eating the right foods, a very high protein percentage. Their PE ratio is super high because they're trying to support their muscle mass.
So now the favorite topic of mine, which is intermittent fasting. I think you are also in love of this topic also because of immense benefits which are unparalleled to none. So I want you to know, I want you to make us understand the scientific basis of the benefits of intermittent fasting. Because currently there are a lot of myths also, we'll surely cover them later in detail. But first of all, let's understand what are the benefits of intermittent fasting. You may explain the fasting and fed state in detail or for the layman to understand it better.
Gotcha. Okay. So first of all, nobody has to do intermittent fasting, but it is, and it's not the most powerful tool, but it is slightly beneficial. I do recommend a light intermittent fast. Intermittent fasting is also on a U-shaped curve where there's such a thing as too much and too little, and you really want the sweet spot. I'm particularly fond of a 16-8 intermittent fast. That's where you're eating in an 8-hour window. Instead of just every waking hour of the day, which is typical in America. And intermittent fasting does a couple of things. First of all, you get used to just living off of stored body fat. So you get a little bit more fat adapted. You also get more in touch with hunger and fullness. You're like, okay, if I'm just like the tiniest bit hungry, I don't have to eat a whole bag of potato chips. I'm actually going to be okay. I'm going to live. So you're cutting down on snacking significantly. You're compressing eating into larger boluses or meals, which is honestly better for human satiety per calorie to have these bolus meals. That's how we're designed to function. You're hunting and gathering and looking for food, and then you get some food and eat a bunch of it, and then you don't eat for a long time. And that's kind of how humans are. Evolutionarily, that's how we kind of arrived at where we're at. So it gets people a little bit more fat adapted. You realize that you don't have to constantly snack. You get to bolus your meals, these larger boluses with protein. You get more in touch with hunger and fullness and don't have to eat the second you feel 1% hungry. But you also could overdo it. Like I have patients who shrink it all the way down to just one meal a day, and it's actually not so great. They're losing muscle because they're burning protein during the day because they don't have enough calories available. If you don't have amino acids available, you could lose muscle. I'm particularly concerned about muscle loss in older people or anyone who didn't have a lot of muscle to begin with. And so I don't like shrinking it down to one meal a day. I like a 16-8, maybe
14 times.
Yeah, so I don't recommend going 24 hours without eating because you're going. A couple of bad things will happen. You get so hungry that when you refeed, you just eat junk. You're also losing protein, especially if you don't have enough muscle to begin with. So it actually starts going backwards, But I do think intermittent fasting is slightly helpful, slightly beneficial. I don't like to over-rely on it. I don't like that to be someone's only strategy. The problem with intermittent fasting is it doesn't teach people how to eat. You know what I mean? Like you have to eat. You have to eat every day. You have to eat a lot. You have to eat several pounds of food. You have to eat hundreds of grams of macronutrients. And the real skill is what are you going to eat when you eat? I want people to choose the right foods, be eating the right foods, and I want people to go out of their way to eat the foods that are going to help them, that have a high protein percent, high fiber, low energy density, a nice mix of enjoyable but not over hedonic, a good combination of protein and non-protein energy. And so the real skill is learning what to eat. It's easy to say, oh, just don't eat for a really long time and then have a big meal. Anyone can do that, but that's not teaching you the skill of eating, cooking and eating and changing your food environment. And there are so many things about your food environment. You want the good foods to be just as available and convenient and easy as it is to get the crappy foods now, which are everywhere. And that's hard to do. So like obtaining good food, having it there, making it easy, making it convenient, making it tasty, making it a nice balance of it's hedonic enough that your food's like a 7 out of 10 delicious instead of a 10 out of 10 delicious, but it's good enough that you're going to enjoy it and repeat it and keep doing it. And so you have to make eating the right foods easy, convenient, tasty, simple, and something you can just repeat automatically. So it's just a habit. And that's the real skill. Just saying, oh, well, just don't eat for 16 hours. Yeah, I mean, that's slightly helpful, but it's not as helpful as learning what to eat when you do eat, if you know what I mean. So I like intermittent fasting as one of the tools in the toolbox, but just a minor portion of the full picture, which is mostly learning what to eat when you do eat, because you have to eat.
So there was a really good analogy which you mentioned in the book, which was the oil tanker analogy, which you mentioned about, I think, about the concept of fat adaptation. So I would like you to elaborate on the same, just for the fasting state science perspective.
Right. So basically, the human body, right? You have tons of fat storage, tons of fat energy. You're carrying around 2 months worth of fat at all times. But then in your liver and muscles, you only have 300-400 grams of glucose, and the liver glucose drifts down to zero after 12 to 24 hours of not eating carbs. The muscle glucose stays there in case you have to run for your life, but after an hour or two of hard exercise, it's totally gone. And so you have this fast burning glucose fuel in your muscles for emergency use and in your liver just to buffer it from the diet. But then you've got this tons of slower burning fat everywhere in your body. And I compared it to it like an oil tanker truck. The tanker truck has 100,000 gallons of oil, this slow burning fuel that it could theoretically burn, but then it's got a tiny little gas tank, and it's just constantly burning and refilling the gas tank over and over and over and over and over again. And that's what it's like when you're just eating carbs all day and never burning all the stored fat on your body. And that's just kind of an analogy for why are you just snacking on carbs all day?
Exactly. So there are a lot of intermittent fasting or fasting myths which are circulating in the internet. I would just like you to debunk them. I've just selected top 5. Just feel free to add some if you think that is also valuable. So one of the first myth is that you have to eat small frequent meals throughout the day for better health. Is it a myth? What do you say?
So there, like all good myths, there's a small amount of truth to it. So let's say I'm a natural bodybuilder and I'm prepping for a show and I'm super lean. I have no fat on my body. And I'm trying to get the most amount of muscle and the least amount of fat at the same time. As you get leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner and leaner, the amount of calories you can get per day from fat goes way down. You can only get about 30 calories per pound of fat per 24 hours. So what will happen to me if I'm not eating frequently is I'm losing muscle. I will literally be burning muscle for energy, which is terrible. So that's why your bodybuilders, when they're stage lean, they'll carry around little containers and they'll just eat every 4 hours. They might eat 6 times a day. They might wake up in the middle of the night and drink a protein shake. So they're just eating protein constantly, a very high protein percentage. Their PE ratio is super high because they're trying to support their muscle mass and not their fat mass. So they're starving their fat mass by not eating carbs or fats, but they're fueling their muscle by just eating protein all day long. In that setting, that's actually true. It's also true that if you have someone who's just not fat adapted, they're just constantly eating carbs, they might get super, super hungry. So dietitians in the hospital will be like, well, have a little carb snack every few hours so you don't get too hungry and overeat. And I guess I could see a little bit of utility there for someone who's very carbohydrate dependent and not fat adapted at all. Like if you eat every few hours, maybe you won't be starving. And then if you added a protein to that and increase the amount of protein over time, that might actually be a effective strategy. But it's basically not true that you have to eat frequently to keep your metabolism going or optimize health. And the reality is most most human animals are continuous energy burners, but intermittent energy accumulators. So you live off of stored energy nonstop. You're constantly burning fat, but you only eat every once in a while. So you eat intermittently, refill your batteries, and then live off of stored battery power. We're basically battery powered, and we have chemical batteries in our fat. And so it's not true that you have to constantly eat. And it's also not true that you just want to go forever without eating. Like if you took it to the absurd where you just ate once a month and it was like 50 pounds of food, that's not going to be optimal. So there's a sweet spot to eating frequency that's somewhere in the middle. It's not too frequent and not too infrequent. And I think a 16-8 with a very large protein containing meal, bookending at either end of the 8-hour eating window, like a big protein meal at the beginning, big protein meal at the end, maybe a couple snacker meal in between. That I think is pretty much optimal for humans, although everyone's going to be slightly different. If you just wanted me to give one piece of advice to the whole planet, it would be basically a light intermittent fast, a 16-8, a large protein containing meal at either end of the 8-hour window, and then, optional more in the middle, like a snack or a meal in between. And of course, depending on how active you are and how many extra calories you need. But so the answer is it's kind of somewhere in the middle, and it depends. And there are scenarios where eating more frequently is good, but not for most people.
So now another myth is that fasting leads to muscle wasting because there is a burning of muscle or tissue. So what is it a myth or is it a fact or some truth?
It depends on how many calories you have available. So if I'm just huge, let's say I'm super, super, super over fat. I'm so over fat that I'm energy toxic and I have diabetes, my blood sugar is super high, my all my energy are super high. I have so much energy, so many calories available that I can go much, much longer without being at risk for losing muscle, because I have so much calorie availability. But as I get leaner and leaner and leaner, if I'm a normal weight, now if I go days without eating, I am going to lose muscle. If I'm that bodybuilder, getting ready for stage prep, I might lose muscle in 12 hours of not eating. That's why I might wake up and set my alarm and get up at 2 in the morning and drink a protein shake. So it completely depends on how over fat you are and your caloric availability and the balance of caloric intake to expenditure. If you're running ultra marathons, if you just look at the body composition of these people, they're so lean, they are losing muscle every time they run a race. And so that is actually a problem. If you have huge caloric expenditures, very little fat tissue, now you are absolutely going to lose muscle with extended fasting. But if you look at the world record for fasting, some dude lost like 380 pounds in a year, but he didn't eat for a year. It was just like minerals and vitamins and water. And he lost a ton of muscle as well, but like not, he maintained some. So like it really depends on how much calories you have available, and it's infinitely variable. But you are going to lose a little bit of muscle as you get leaner and leaner and leaner. So that's why I like intermittent fasting less and less as people approach their ideal body composition.
दोस्तों ये वीडियो अगर आपको वैल्यूएबल लगा तो इसे लाइक कर अपने सारे दोस्तों से इसे शेयर कीजिएगा। इस चैनल को सब्सक्राइब तो आप कर ही लेंगे। चलिए मिलते हैं।